In the quiet town of Mattoon, Illinois, a peculiar series of events began unfolding on the night of August 31st, 1944. The night air, typically filled with tranquility, was pierced by an ominous presence. An unsuspecting resident fell victim to an inexplicable gas attack, plagued by symptoms that seemed to be ripped from the pages of a chilling thriller: paralysis, coughing, and nausea. Whispers of the incident swept across the town as the dawn broke, transforming the peaceful neighborhood into a cauldron of unease and suspicion. Local law enforcement, initially skeptical, found themselves caught in a web of uncertainty as they grappled with the strange occurrence. Was this an isolated incident, or the beginning of something far more sinister? As the sun set, the fear was palpable, the town's normal rhythm replaced by the disquieting beat of uncertainty. And amidst this brewing storm, there was an unknown entity lurking in the shadows, orchestrating the terror. This phantom menace, this faceless tormentor, was yet to be known by the name that would forever echo in the annals of Mattoon's history. The unknown assailant, later dubbed as the Mad Gasser of Mattoon, had made his first move. As the days rolled by, more reports of the gas attacks trickled in, each with striking similarities. The town of Mattoon, once a tranquil haven, now found itself in the grip of an unexplainable terror. Residents spoke of a tall, thin figure, sometimes described as a woman dressed as a man, who would vanish into the night, leaving behind a trail of gas-induced symptoms. Victims would experience paralysis, bouts of coughing, and waves of nausea, yet no one suffered serious consequences or met an untimely end. Day-to-day life in the town was disrupted dramatically. A simple walk to the grocer or a leisurely evening in the backyard became a nerve-wracking ordeal. The streets that were once filled with laughter and chatter now echoed with hushed whispers and hurried footsteps. The nighttime especially was a period of dread as residents bolted their doors and peered anxiously out of their windows, fearing the arrival of the ominous gasser. The fear was not unfounded. Within a span of less than 2 weeks, over 24 cases were reported. Each report was a chilling reminder of the unseen terror that lurked in the shadows. Schools were deserted, businesses shuttered early, and homes were turned into fortresses as the residents did everything in their power to protect themselves and their loved ones. Yet, the gasser remained elusive. A phantom that had successfully instilled fear in the hearts of an entire town. But as the days turned into nights and the nights into days, the people of Mattoon were not about to give in to the fear. They were determined to get to the bottom of this mystery and bring an end to the reign of the Mad Gasser. With over 24 cases reported, the town was gripped by an unprecedented wave of fear. The local police, now under immense pressure, began their investigation into these bizarre attacks. The incidents had the town in a chokehold of fear, and the urgency was palpable. The police force, initially skeptical, were now pushed into action. They scoured the town, interviewed victims, and collected clues. One of the first breakthroughs in the case came in the form of physical evidence: a cloth and a skeleton key. Found at the scene of one of the attacks, these items offered a glimmer of hope. Perhaps they could provide a lead to the identity or motive of this elusive assailant. The cloth particularly held the promise of potential chemical traces, a clue that could possibly link to the gas attacks. But alas, the analysis came up empty. There were no chemicals detected on the cloth. The skeleton key, too, offered no substantial leads. As the investigation hit roadblocks, the case was escalated. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, was brought into the fold. The involvement of the FBI amplified the seriousness of the situation, but it also brought a more methodical approach to the investigation. The FBI, with its wide-reaching resources, delved deeper into the case, examining the collected evidence and re-interviewing the victims. They meticulously worked through the details of the incidents, hoping to find that overlooked clue or missed connection. Yet, the Mad Gasser remained elusive, almost ghost-like, slipping through the fingers of both local and federal law enforcement. The investigation was thorough, the efforts were relentless, but the answers remained out of reach. The case continued to baffle investigators. The lack of concrete evidence, coupled with the unusual nature of the attacks, made it a perplexing puzzle. Each piece they thought they had, each lead they followed, only led to more questions. And so, despite their best efforts, the identity of the Mad Gasser remained a mystery. the shadowy figure continued to haunt Mattoon, a spectre whose presence was felt, but whose identity remained shrouded in the unknown. As the investigation hit a dead end, theories and speculations began to circulate. The first theory, and perhaps the most popular, was that of mass hysteria. Skeptics argued that the escalating fear and panic among the townsfolk had led them to imagine symptoms and see threats where there were none. This theory posits that the Mad Gasser was nothing more than a figment of collective fear, a ghost born of wartime anxiety and paranoia. But not everyone was ready to dismiss the Mad Gasser as a phantom. Another theory suggested industrial pollution was the culprit. Proponents pointed to the symptoms reported by the victims: paralysis, coughing, nausea, arguing they were consistent with exposure to certain industrial chemicals. Could it be that the Mad Gasser was not a person, but a byproduct of the industrial progress? And then there were those who firmly believed in the reality of the assailant. They held on to the physical evidence, the cloth and the skeleton key, as proof of a genuine threat. In their eyes, the Mad Gasser was not a product of imagination or industry, but a flesh and blood person who had somehow managed to elude capture. As the debate raged on, the mystery of the Mad Gasser of Mattoon only deepened. Each theory had its proponents and detractors, adding to the intrigue of the case. By September 12th, police announced that the incidents were likely explainable occurrences and a result of public fears. With this statement, the frenzied reports began to dwindle. The dread that once gripped Mattoon started to ease and life slowly returned to its regular rhythm. However, the Mad Gasser refused to fade quietly into the annals of history. There was one final sighting, a curveball in the narrative. The Gasser this time was reported as a woman. This only added another layer to the enigma, stoking the embers of uncertainty. Even as the panic subsided, the resolution of the case was far from satisfying. No definitive proof of the Gasser's existence was ever found. The lack of closure was palpable, the loose ends of the tale refusing to be neatly tied up. Theories continued to swirl, from mass hysteria to industrial pollution, each as elusive as the Gasser themselves. And so the tale of the Mad Gasser of Mattoon came to an end, leaving behind a lingering sense of mystery and lack of closure. A tale that began with fear and confusion ended with an unsettling silence, leaving an eerie echo in the history of Mattoon.